I'll just share my journey with you. I I was born to like two very business-minded parents. They owned their own company. They were executive recruiters. They found jobs for people, and my father's brother was a musician, and I came out wanting to sing and dance and all that stuff. And also, I had a past life memory very young, at around 2.5. So it sort of sent me on on a spiritual journey very young. So the song and the dance was really like a place where I found refuge. And so I shared with my parents really young that I wanted to sing and dance when I grew up. And my dad was like, ha, 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 ha. That's so cute. That's not what you'll do. You'll be a businesswoman. And I was like, right, yeah, totally. I'll be a businesswoman. So I became like this closeted artist. And, I did a few things, but by and large, I really became pretty trapped in insecurity about my own artistry and creativity. So I went to college to pursue business, studying economics. I was failing miserably. I hated it, but I was in an a cappella group. And this was sort of my moment where I said, look, I came home and I said, I need to sing. And I'm changing schools and I'm going to study music and you don't have to support me, but I'd rather die than do this. At the time, my uncle, who was a mentor of mine, who was the musician, my dad's brother, he said, why don't you come to New York and work with Alicia, who was this girl that was a lifelong family friend of ours. And her and I were always in communication, and we were pen pals actually around this time. So she had graduated a year earlier than me, and so she was in college at the time, and I was in my senior year, and we were writing letters, and she had gotten a record deal. This commercial came on, it was a L'Oreal makeup commercial or something, and at the end of it, they said, because you're worth it. And we were like, oh, we're worth it. Let's write a song about that. So we went and we wrote this song called A Woman's Worth. And, time went on, and Alicia made an album, and we sort of created this really awesome collective of artists and writers and producers, and we would make music together. And then, she put this masterful album together, and she delivered it. The label said, this is garbage, this album. We don't want it. Do something different. And, which was soul crushing, obviously. So in the industry, there's this thing called A&R, artist and repertoire. This other A&R found out about her and took her to this guy named Clive Davis. And Clive Davis was like, I like this. I believe in this artist. And he put the entire world behind her. So if she got signed when we were 16, the album didn't come till we were 21. At this time, I was graduating school over the summer, and she was like, oh, guess what? Woman's Worth, it's going to be on the album. And it might be a single or whatever. And we had written this years before, and I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know what any of this meant. So I was 20 at the time or something. So I finished school, I moved to New York, and within 3 weeks, she was going out on tour with an artist named Maxwell, and she was opening for him. And one of our friends in the collective was going to go as her assistant, and she said, hey, she can't make it. Can you come with me for a few weeks? And I was like, totally. That sounds like so much fun. So I go, and 3 weeks turned into 6 weeks, and then the road manager quit. And then I said, I could do that gig. So then I became the road manager. And then her manager was like, hey, you're really good at this. I want you to be my right hand. I want you to be the manager on the road while I stay back in New York and, handle the business, and you will travel as management. But God, why? Like, all I wanted to do was be not in business. I'm an artist. How did I end up on the business side of things again? This is like a joke. So here I am now in the business of music, managing my best friend's career at a very young age in a very male-dominated industry. You know, like about a year or two into this, I was really exhausted. And so on a break, I took this trip to Spain with this organization, Volunteers for Peace. So I went there and it felt like home. And I studied flamenco guitar and I lived on this farm. And I was living in this tent in the southernmost part of Spain and waking up every morning to the Atlas Mountains in Africa. And I was just like, oh my God, it was the closest I ever felt, like in all my seeking and searching, to spirit. And it was this moment of like, this is what I want for my life. I want to live on a lot of land and be in community and have a close relationship with Mother Nature. And so I just tucked that in my back pocket, got a little refreshed, and went back to work. And at this time, you know, in this span of time, the song "A Woman's Worth" came out, and it became a pretty big song. And it was really wild to be like, you know, in arenas and like the whole arena is singing this song, and I'm like, you know, crying. I'm like, oh my God, this is so powerful. I can't believe it. Because I'm traveling around the world with Alicia, people are calling me her manager. So her manager pops in every now and again. We all knew what that meant. It meant I'm the whole fucking show. I'm the whole fucking show. And he wanted to beat everybody down. And he did a really good job of it. So, and here we are getting on stage to support this artist who was like really beautiful and heart-centered, and we were all there for her because this guy was like a total shit show, totally egoed out. And then eventually one morning, she had a show that night, and at this point we're like 5 years into the journey, and I just called her and I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. It was a harder road to be independent at that time, but I knew that I didn't want the music business. So I went on to make this album. Along this time and this break, I was doing things like studying Reiki and going to this school called Institute for Integrative Nutrition and learning about holistic health because I always had digestive issues because that's where I stored all my shit. When I was leaving Alicia, by the way, I said to her, listen, your business is fucking crooked. All these people are stealing from you. I'm not about that. I've got to go. But if you want to run your business differently one day, I will help you with that. A few years later, she said, I'm ready. So we started her business, AK Worldwide, and built this whole business for her. And I became the president of this company, knowing that I'm on this karmic mission with this woman, but also knowing that I'm not fully in alignment with my purpose. And I don't know what it is. And also around this time, I start to get sick. By the way, Alicia became Alicia Keys. And that first album that the label said was shit went on to sell 10 million records. So much for that, not listening to people who tell you that the shit you make is amazing. Now I'm 17 years into this, and like incredible work has been done, and but what's my legacy? I'm like I'm totally invisible. Nobody knows except the people who work with us. And I never wanted to be her manager. Like I never wanted to be her manager, but you know, enough people were kind of like, but you are her manager. You're doing it. You're just really comfortable playing the back and being in the shadow. Step out front and own it. So I was like, okay, I can do this. I can own it. Thanks to Kundalini Yoga, it gave me the crazy idea that I could actually do it. So I finally, stepped in. We're like, 18 years deep into the story. And I'm like, okay, I can do this on my own. I don't need a dude here, waxing manager while I'm doing all the work. I can do this. And this Billboard article comes out and it's Erika and Ty and managing the business, the thing. And my heart dropped. I was like crying. I was like, I'm not in integrity. I actually don't want this. Like, it's true. I don't want this. And my husband thought I was nuts. For him, he was like, you're finally getting like what you deserve. So it was really hard. I couldn't really talk about that with anyone because they were just like, bitch, please. Like, this is what you've worked for. And I was kind of like, it's actually not what I've worked for. So it was really confusing. So fine. So I finally step in. Album comes out. And like within a week, this is like, this is high time. The album is out. Everybody is like grinding, working so hard. And I lose hearing in my left ear. And I go to the doctor and he's like, oh, it's called sudden sensory hearing loss. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So when's it coming back? And he was like, oh, sometimes it doesn't come back. There's nothing I can do about it and I can't guarantee that it'll come back. And I was like, and my friend lent me her gong, and I just buried my head in the gong. I was just like banging the gong with my ear in the gong and doing, and prayed and practiced and did a lot of work and called in my army, a lot of work in the unseen. And it started to come back, like a little bit. But when I was tuning in, it was like, you're not listening. You're not listening. And I was like, and it was like, you're off your path. You're like far off your path. You're like a year behind schedule at least. So I was like, thank you for not breaking my legs or putting me in like some crazy car accident. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is really direct. You're not listening. You're gonna lose your hearing. Okay, boom, I got it. I get it. Do you know what you have to do? Yeah, I know what I have to do. I have to leave. So, like, less than a year into the gig and the 20 years of working up to this moment of stepping into the role as a soul manager, I'm the girl who gets sick and is like, I can't work anymore. I can't do this anymore. Oh, like it just, once you kind of give your body permission. So I just totally crashed and burned. Yeah. So that was just a little over a year ago now. In this process, when I met my husband almost 10 years ago now, he and I went on this trip together for my birthday, and we were visioning, and we laid out this whole vision, this beautiful vision of getting land and creating this retreat center, and doing, food and art and healing and all this stuff. And so a couple years into our relationship, we bought some land in the Hudson Valley, 50 acres. And we found like this land with this little cabin on it, and we renovated the cabin, and we moved into the cabin, and lived there for a while, and then built our house, which we just moved into over the summer. And so, when we moved, into this house, we were unpacking all of our bags, and I found this journal where I had written down our vision, which I forgot about, and this vision of this thing that I had concretized when I was in Spain of living on this land and creating this community. We decided we called it Rooted and Wild. And so part of my healing has been allowing myself to be sick, listening to my body and really getting in touch with what it needs and trusting its messages. I was receiving my own reflection, It was for me to rise. So this past year has been incredibly profound, incredibly painful, but mostly really beautiful. So I'm happy to say that I feel like I came through my dark night of the soul. One of the big teachings for me is knowing that you look back and you're like, oh my God, look at this beautiful tapestry that my life has been weaving. I didn't know it at the time, but it's this work of art. So it's up to us to start to come together and be in these conversations like, okay, well, what does it look like when we're in power? What does that look like? What are the new ways that we're going to work together? It's not about competition, it's about collaboration. Okay, let's share. Let's do this together. Okay, if we put us all together, holy shit, we could change the world, So I'm so excited. I'm so excited now to be alive on the planet in the 3D. Just play, like be in the lab with it. What could it look like? How can it be different? To me, this is like the new way forward, and we're creating it. Like, it's super exciting. I'm sure I talked way too long. So I'm gonna open it up for any questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.